The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. And this is a very special webinar. I'm certainly excited about this. This is going to be a terrific webinar. So thank you very much for joining us. Lots of people on the call today. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the Benefits Trust. We are a full-service third-party benefit administration company. We were established on January 1st, 1994. So we've been around just over 25 years and excited about that. We work exclusively with brokers like you. We do not sell direct. Just to keep that in mind. So when our comments today are really about how we can help you help your clients. At the end of the presentation today, you're going to be receiving a CE certificate for participating. You are also going to be receiving a very short survey and we want you to answer that survey if you can, as 4 or 5 questions. As well as that, you're going to get some an opportunity to give us some feedback on what other future topics you'd like to see covered in webinars. And you're going to be signed up for our Trusted Advisor newsletter. And as well as that, correct me if I'm wrong, but there'll be a link to the presentation today. Yes, there'll be a link to the presentation today. So welcome to the Benefits Trust. My name is Robert Crowder. I'm the president and founder of the Benefits Trust. That's what I look like, so you can have a face to the voice. And our moderator today is a gentleman by the name of Mike Ignat. Say hello, Mike.
Good morning, everybody.
Mike might be chiming in from time to time, and he's our moderator. If you have any questions throughout the day today, just type them in the question box. Or enter them, type, that's such an old word. Enter them into the question box, and we will either answer them throughout the rest of the presentation, or we will, or Mike will answer them offline, or we'll answer them after the presentation. So make sure you do that as well. But we're really excited today. We do a number of these webinars, and we've got a VIP special guest here today, and that is Mr. Dave Patriarche. Dave, say hello.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, so here's Dave, and there's Serious Dave.
Every now and then.
And then there's Casual Dave. Yeah. And then, of course, there's those of you that know there's Sailing Dave. Dave did something very interesting. I've had the opportunity to know Dave and be a friend of Dave's for many years. And one of the things that Dave did this most recently is he, when was it, in January, February, or March?
Yep, January, February.
January, February, he sailed a 50-foot boat, or was part of a crew that sailed a 50-foot boat across the Atlantic Ocean, and that's extraordinary. So,
pretty cool experience.
Pretty cool experience, and life is just about a number of experiences, chapters, as I like to say. So welcome, Dave. Thank you very much for participating. And the reason why Dave and I think we get along so well is because there's a number of reasons, but one of the main things is Dave has this incredible vision of helping others succeed.
Like you do.
Well, yes, that's one of the common things that we both have. It is about helping others succeed. It's not a zero-sum game. If I get a client, and Dave, you don't lose a client. There's so much business out there. It's just an opportunity, and it's about helping others succeed. And that's really the spirit of today's webinar, is helping others succeed. So we're going to run through some stuff pretty quickly here, because we want to get to the meat of this presentation, and because Dave's got a lot of wisdom and knowledge that he wants to share. And we want to share as well. So let's get to the agenda today.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of do a review of a bunch of different things, adding value, and this has been coming up quite a bit lately with G19 and disclosure and stuff.
G19 sound effects.
Gone. Yeah, it's history. And the kind of advisors realizing they have to add value to the relationship. So we're going to talk with the plan administrator checklist and kind of who it's for and what it is and where it's used and how you make one and why you make one and things like that. So we're going to kind of cover the whole gambit with it.
So the old who, what, where, how, and why, it's always great questions to answer. And the administrator's checklist is really something that you can use, or anybody can use, to add value in a relationship. But one of the things that's interesting is I've been selling group insurance for 30 years, and primarily in the small end of the marketplace, not under 100 life marketplace, and that's where the majority of people operate, because that's where the majority of Canadian business is. This is what clients see when they talk about benefits.
And I actually, just looking at that slide again, all they see is a pile of numbers. And interestingly, when I talk to new and prospective clients, the first thing, if they're all prepared for me and they have the renewal rates and the claims data and everything in front of me, I just go push that to the side. Let's not talk about the numbers. Let's talk about everything else. And it changes the entire conversation. So you're 100% right. That's what they see. and it's just a mess.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's what they see, and that's a mess. But what we want to do is have clients that look like this, smiley, happy clients with their employees in the background, and you want them to be happy and you want them to be comfortable, and most importantly, you want that element of trust. And I strongly believe the administrator's checklist is one of those things that can put you over that trust line and put you over that trust line very quickly.
It shows that you care about them and their employees in a way that nothing else does.
You got it. At the Benefits Trust, I call this my elevator speech, or our elevator speech, pardon me. But at the Benefits Trust, what we do is we help successful business owners build a better benefit plan than they can get anywhere else. It's as simple as that. It's about helping successful business owners build a better benefit plan than they can get anywhere else. And it's interesting, when I look at the slide of the different boxes and so on, benefit plans are all different. They're not all the same. So many people think you sell something and you deliver it and you move on. Well, that's not the case with benefits. Benefits are always changing, and there's different colors and different sizes and different shapes, and benefit plans really need to be cared for on an ongoing basis.
Just like the clients, they're growing, evolving, and changing, and the plan has to match them. 100%.
Absolutely. And no two clients are the same. Yep. No two employee groups are the same. No two benefit plans are ultimately the same either. So one of the best questions that I've learned in my in wearing out shoes as I walk down the road, and this question, quite frankly, came from the strategic coach, Dan Sullivan, but it's something that I've been using for a number of years now. But it's just the great future-based questions. And I use this question whether I'm in a prospecting meeting with a broker, or whether I'm in a client meeting, or whether, quite frankly, I'm with my friends, is if we were meeting here 3 years from today, and I love to put the date in because it just makes it that much more solid. If we were meeting here 3 years from today, June 6, 2021, what has to have happened for you to say it's been the best 3 years of your life? And this is just a great question because it gets people focused on the future as opposed to talking about what's happened in the past. It gets them focused on where it is that they're going. And it was interesting. Recently, I was away with, there was 14 of us on a trip, and we were gone for 2 weeks, and we were sitting around on this cruise ship, and we were having a great time, and all entrepreneurs, and I was sitting around with a group of guys, and we were having drinks, and I asked them all this question, or I asked this question of the table. And it was one of the most dynamic conversations. And 3 or 4 of them, I've heard me ask that question before at a dinner party. It's just a great future-based question.
Some people see the future. Some people live for the day.
Yeah. And it's about looking in the future, I think. Another great quote that I saw recently, and I don't think it's a new quote, but I just saw it recently, is poor people will spend time to save money, while wealthy people will spend money to save time. And that really resonated with me. Poor people spend time to save money when wealthy people spend money to save time. So why is that relevant in today's conversation? Well, I think it's incredibly relevant because it's a mindset. An administrator's checklist helps clients save time and then ultimately money. But when you show a client or a prospect an administrator's checklist, or someone new in your relationship, an administrator's checklist, when they look at it, they go, wow, this is going to save a lot of time. It's an interesting mindset that they have because you can tell that they're successful, a successful client, and you can tell that you've got that ultimate relationship with them because they look at this as a time saver, not necessarily as a money saver, but ultimately it does save them money.
Absolutely. And I mean, the more you spend time training up front, the less mistakes, the less things you have to solve later on. There's a great line by John Wooden, the basketball coach, that says something like, if you haven't got the time to do it right in the first place, when are you going to find the time to do it later on, to fix it, to prepare it, whatever? And do it right up front, and you save time and money for sure.
So an administrator's checklist is really about saving time. So when we look at the future ahead, you want to work with clients that are interested in saving time and focusing themselves. They're clients that are open for business. They're going to be here today. They're going to be here tomorrow. They're going to be here the day after tomorrow. This isn't necessarily the best solution for people that are going to be out of business tomorrow.
And that's huge. You asked that question of, you want to deal with successful businesses, people that are open, that can pay their bill, and looking forward in your 3-year question, you're kind of going, where are you going to be? Are you on the verge of retiring, of selling out, or whatever? There's a lot of businesses that are not open for business, and a lot of brokers trying to sell them, and it's short-term clients.
Yeah, short-term clients. So you want long-term clients, and this is about building relationships and adding value into the long-term and helping them save time so they can make more money. Simple as that. So the question that I have, Dave, and putting this together, Is it administrator's checklist about adding value, or is it just something a good broker should just do?
Yes, it's both. I mean, it adds great value to the relationship and training and all that kind of stuff, which we'll talk about. But it's just kind of table stakes. And this came up in the seminar yesterday about training plan administrators. You want to make sure that they know what they're doing. Here's a great tool to do that. That's your good broker line, but how you use it is where the value add is.
Speaking of adding value, that was a nice, we haven't even rehearsed this.
Yeah,
That's
no, we're good. Yeah.
Adding value defined, blah, 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 blah. You can all read this. You add value to your customers when you deliver a product or service that has been designed specifically to solve their problem and deliver it in a way that demonstrates you understand what they value the most.
So listen to your clients, solve their problems.
So this is about solving their problem, and delivering value is about solving their problem and understand what they value the most. What problems do clients have, Dave?
They have tons of problems. They have problems with benefits. They have problems with their employees. They have taxation problems and so on. And you want to make this whole thing run smoothly. So the value add is give them the time, give them the peace of mind, the trust, and all that type of stuff behind it.
So what
kind of stuff?
Yeah, what clients value the most is every client is different, as we mentioned earlier. Yeah. Every client is different. Every employee group is different. What their problem is fear.
Yeah. Fear is a useful tool too, but
no, absolutely. Yeah. You know, some people fear costs, some people fear unknowns, some people fear employees, some people fear all sorts of different things. You know, some people fear disguises, you know, the big bad wolf here, right? Little Red Riding Hood looking for or hiding from or there's the big bad wolf hiding, you know, trying to trick Little Red Riding Hood. But it's that fear of that unknown. This slide made me laugh. It's, you know, I think I might have made a big mistake because you never really know how big the wave is until you're on it.
It's like you never know what the renewal is going to be like until to the end of the year.
Until you get it, unless you do certain things to, you know, to make sure of that. So it's about harnessing fear, and that's where that future-based question comes in, is understanding not only where they're going, what their fears are.
Yep.
Right. And what do they value the most? Profit. You know, back to Economics 101, what's the purpose of a business? And to maximize its profits for its shareholders. You know, it's fear of losing profit, and what they value the most is that profit.
Or just losing their business altogether. 100%. Risks in our business can be huge.
Yeah, 100%. So, 100%. So what kind of surprises can appear in a benefit plan? Well, you know, simple things. Claim not being paid.
Yeah, and all these ones are ones that you kind of see off and on all the time. And it's the simple things, but it ends up hurting employee relationships. It can be administrative errors that cause risk to the company. All these things, price, just administrative errors that kind of screw up the relationship, take away the value and everything else.
Yeah, and it's, you know, one of the things I've got in here is an increase in price and a decrease in price. Decrease in price, some entrepreneurs hate that because they go, I pay too much.
Yeah, right. It's true, 100%.
Or the cocktail party.
I go the decrease in price. I put it out in a newsletter every year saying, here's the biggest decrease that I sold this year. And the guy who got it hated it because of exactly what you said, the overpriced. So,
and I love the better benefits cheaper story because we're getting into barbecue season and everybody's sitting around in backyard barbecues or dog parties or whatever it is, and they go, oh yeah, my benefits are better and cheaper. Pardon?
Yeah.
Right. So those are fears, you know, real fears. Right. So as I like to say, keep calm, no surprises. If you educate your employers well, or your clients well, and your prospects well, and your administrators well, really there aren't any surprises, and they ignore those conversations.
100%.
Yeah. So this is something that you always said, Dave.
Oh, avoid the problems. Fix the small stuff now before it becomes big. And if you can avoid the problem altogether, avoid it before it even happens. And we often say, this actually came up in the seminar we were doing yesterday, of the best advisor is the one that you never know there's a problem. It's always resolved before you even know it's happening. So it just saves everything from becoming a problem.
It's only a problem if it becomes a problem. Exactly. Yeah. This is a typical employee benefit program. There's an awful lot of moving parts. As I was mentioning earlier, when you deliver a benefit plan, you're not done. You're just beginning, as a matter of fact. You know, the sales process is one thing, but once the July 1st starts, or the August 1st starts, or the September 1st starts, or whatever the start date is, that's really when the work begins, because a typical employee benefit program, there are an absolute ton of moving parts. So let's get into the meat of this, Dave. We've spent 15 minutes on the introduction here. Really, you know, how to create your employee or your administrator's checklist. And we were talking about in the agenda, the who, what, where, how, and why, right?
And I started this 20-something years ago and went out to a whole lot of different people and tried to answer the questions that we would miss. So when you left a plan administrator meeting or a new group meeting, let's try and answer all the questions that we forgot to answer in the meeting. So the things you wish you'd said, things you wish they'd known, and we wanted to build a list to kind of deal with those questions.
So let's go back. You said you've been doing this,
20 years.
you've been in the business, or in the insurance business, 23 years, but you've been using this list or a facsimile of this list for 20 years.
And it's evolved all the way along.
And it's evolved all, we're going to get to that for sure, but it's evolved all the way along. But you use this in prospecting meetings, and this, do you think, was an integral part of helping you build your business?
It was the only thing that differentiated me from everybody for a long time.
Yeah.
It was so different. And to this day, when I go out and use it, nobody has ever seen anything like it before.
So still brokers are not using
100%.
So use it, people.
Okay, think about this. 50% of the cases sold in Canada today, benefit plans, are sold by people who sell one case or less a year. Can you imagine going to a doctor who only sees one patient a year, or a mechanic who only works on one car a year, and yet people are buying benefit plans from people who only sell one case or less a year? And so coming in with something like this shows that you are a professional, that you understand, that you care about them, you care about their employees. It sets you apart right away.
Awesome. So who, what, where, how, and why. When creating your administrator's checklist, who do you have to include?
So this is actually interesting. When I started, the idea was, let's solve the problems that the clients are going to have before they have them.
The small problems before they become.
Yeah, exactly. And so we kind of went out and went to the insurers and said, what insurer problems do you have? And late applicants, for example, is one that comes up over and over again. We go to the TPAs and we say, okay, what are you not seeing? Oh, we're not seeing proper information or whatever. We have our feedback. And then we put it out to employment lawyers, to accountants and things like that, and HR consultants, and said, okay, what other stuff is missing? These people all kind of, their roles all have to be considered when you put it in, because you may not share this list with everybody. It's mainly for your client. But as you kind of talk to their accountants, their lawyers, their HR people, it actually ends up not just being information supplied by them, but it'll be information used by them. And if you're lucky and you deal in the small business marketplace like I am, then it's those people, lawyers, accountants, HR, that will also share it with their other clients, which
absolutely
brings you business too.
And the government plays a role in this, because this benefits are just a form of compensation, and of course compensation is taxed. So the government certainly plays a role in these things as well.
Absolutely.
So these are the people that you are
you're considering.
You're considering. This is sort of the goggles that you're wearing, and you're looking at it from a client's perspective, an insurer's perspective, etc. Excellent. So who is to be included? And all of these things, I think, really need to be taken into consideration and included when creating and using your list. That's most important. It needs to be taken into consideration when creating and using the list. So let's answer the question, what?
Okay, so you want to do this one?
Yeah.
This is your multi-tool.
Yeah, this is a multi-tool.
Like,
and it's interesting. When you look at a multi-tool, and these are very useful tools if you are doing a number of different functions and you only have one pocket, right, or one spot on your belt.
It's there and it's ready. Maybe not the perfect tool, but it does lots of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the perfect tool, but it does an awful lot of things. And it's interesting because when you can buy all sorts of different types of multi-tools, but the question is, the multi-tool can be used by yourself, but it can also be used by many people.
100%. And for lots of different things. And that's what this list is.
Yeah. And when you go sailing, for example, Dave, and you're out in the middle of the ocean,
we have a multi-tool.
You have a multi-tool because if something breaks, you're looking, you can't carry a tool chest with you. You can only carry limited amounts of stuff. So you're using multi-tools to fix multiple things.
Exactly,
right?
100%.
Right. So the question that I have is, what's to be included in this multi-tool? And really that's the question, is what is to be included in this list?
And if I can say one thing, everybody's list is different.
100%.
This is not a set list and there's a right list and this is it. Everybody's going to reflect what matters to them. If you deal in small business versus large business, if you're in a P&C house, if you do nothing but health spending accounts, or you do
lots of union work,
absolutely, all those things are going to change how this works. I don't do much union work, so you won't see on my list anything about collective bargaining agreements. Yep. And yet anyone who does, that's like number one on their list, is refer to the collective bargaining agreements.
So when we're talking about what's on your list, and I want to remind everybody as well, because we are going through this very quickly, you are going to be getting a link to this presentation in the stuff we're going to send you at the end of it, so you can look at these headings when it comes time to building your list. So let's talk about what some of these headings are.
Yeah, so we're kind of going through them, and this made it a simple way to kind of understand and share the information and clump it together. So plan administration, responsibilities, who's doing what, when, and how, the timelines for that, and that's just like kind of the basic administration stuff. The taxation problems you can kind of get into and need to know and need to avoid. Liability, a big part of my business is helping clients to avoid liability. quite often from their errors and employees suing employers for things like disability that doesn't pay out. The privacy and confidentiality, well, we've had PIPEDA around for a long time, but safeguarding those documents is huge. And then you get into the HR side where you get into more policies and procedures that affect all the things above.
So when we're talking about benefit plan administration examples, the usual things, employment, termination, change in family status, NEM considerations.
We're trying to get people to do that stuff in a timely manner, get the right information in to avoid late applicant problems and things like that. We want to get everybody medically underwritten so they get the proper coverage. We want to make sure there's beneficiaries so the money's going to the right person rather than to the estate and going to pay taxes. And sometimes it's as simple as a change in class. This one came up in a discussion yesterday where an employee changed class and they just totally forgot about it. And so he's got the raise, he's got the new role, he's now executive, and they forgot to put him in the executive plan. We want to try and remind them of all those type of things.
So it's really, this is kind of the basic rule book, and you're talking to an administrator saying it's important. Not only you have to tell us when somebody joins the plan, when somebody leaves the plan, when somebody gets married on Saturday, you got to tell us these things. But this is why it's important.
Yeah, 100%.
The little problems before they become big problems.
And the list is a short list that creates big conversations.
Yeah, which is critical.
Yeah.
Hey, just a quick question on NEM considerations.
Yep.
So you've got what are your views on this? You've got and how would you consult with an administrator on this? You've got, for example, a $3,000 NEM on your long-term disability, and someone gets a raise.
Yep.
And now they're eligible to receive $3,150.
Yeah.
Do you consult, or do you advise? Thank you, your administrators, to fill out the evidence of insurability form for $150, or do you wait till it's more meaningful? Or
100% do it at the 150. Because,
or do it at the number above.
Whatever the number is.
I'm using that as a theory.
Yeah, no, exactly. So every time there's an increase, get them to do it. First of all, if they're little increases, they may be given automatically. So if they're under like 5% increases or whatever. If you don't do it, then the numbers get bigger and bigger, and the risk becomes bigger and bigger, and the questions become bigger and bigger, and the insurance company looking at it is looking at a bigger number. So 150 is not a big deal. You're right, and the risk isn't really a big deal.
So it might happen automatically because they can't be bothered for the underwriting.
But as you go ahead a couple more years, that number starts to get bigger.
Because
and bigger
150 big problems, little problems become big problems. So all of a sudden,
absolutely hit it early.
All of a sudden, that $100 or $150 is now $1,000, and that's a bigger deal.
And if you got somebody who's 30 years old, 35 years away from age 65, is $150 a month for 12 months a year for the next 30 years. It's still adding up to a check that you don't want to write for the minute and a half it takes to fill out a form. Just do it.
Yeah, beneficiary designations is something that is near dear to my heart, because over the years we have paid out life insurance proceeds to ex-spouses. New spouses don't like it. Ex-spouses love it.
Yeah. Or you have kids that are listed that are 5 years old and stuff like that.
How often do you, or have you ever had discussions with clients where they say it's time to do
like a re-enrollment?
A re-enrollment, a beneficiary cleanse, if you would, a re-enrollment just to...
I'm terrible at it. Honestly, it's one of the things I wish I could do better. I do about once a year in my newsletter, a reminder, and my newsletter is one side's made for employers and one for employees. So on the employee side, it's update your beneficiaries.
Yep.
So I kind of try and get that out once a year. So even if I am not talking and doing employee meetings or reminders, it's out there. But I'm telling you, because of this, I'm going to do a blog to my clients, a blog post saying, remember to update beneficiaries.
Awesome, especially if there's a change in family status.
Huge, yeah.
Like all of a sudden, I just got married on the weekend. Have you changed your beneficiary from your mother to your new wife? Because, that usually doesn't go over well with new wives.
No.
Mothers are beneficiaries. Anyways, so this is just things, what to be included in the benefit plan administration example. Enrollments, terminations, NEMs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And this is just the beginning.
Yeah. And online portal access is something that's interesting because I know we do it here internally, but with all of our administrators, but they forget they've got it. Because generally speaking, smaller employers have so few transactions a year, whether it's, 3 people get hired and 2 get terminated, whatever the circumstances are, they're not doing this every single day. So it's just a great tool that they can use as a reminder that they've got this access.
And it ends up being real time and everything else as well when changes do happen.
Let's talk about timelines.
Yeah. So there's a lot of timelines. I mean, the magic 31 days with most contracts say you got to get changes in salary done right away, not once a year at renewal time. Although we remind them at renewal time, got to do it right away. Late.
What if there's a
enrollments,
global salary change in the company?
that's okay once a year then.
Yep.
But if there's anybody going through a mid-year change because of a promotion,
Yep.
because of a change in role or something, or change in hours. We've had people that are getting, they're working 40 hours a week and they've got their full pay. They're dropping down to 25 and doing work sharing with somebody.
Yeah, good point.
And people forget to change it. The rate is the same, but the hours have changed. So a disability would end up being a bit of a problem, or vice versa. So those type of things, late applicants, late enrollments, are always an issue. We want to avoid those and the risk that goes together with them.
What are some of the risks with late enrollments?
The biggest issue is a decline from the insurance company. So you forget to enroll the person, or it's not done in a timely manner. The insurance company sees a pre-existing condition. They can decline to accept it, and now the employer is at risk.
Because their compensation, their letter of offer, their contract of offer says you get paid $36,000 in full benefits.
Yeah, not even, yes, that's 100% true. But even if that offer letter didn't mention benefits, the fact that there's a benefit plan and the booklet says all employees, it's implied. And the fact that the employer did not fulfill their duty of care to enroll in a timely manner meant the employer let them down, which took away coverage from the person. And again, you use that 30-year-old making $3,500 or whatever a month times 12 months times 30 years, that ends up being a multi-million dollar risk.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not hard to get to $1 million risk these days. And the accountants, the tax lawyers that you hear, the personal injury lawyers, the disability lawyers, and all those type of things, they'll tell you the number really fast.
That's why I have satellite radio, so I can't listen to those ads.
Good move. Yeah.
I just noticed a typo here. It's not taxation reports dates. It's taxation report dates.
There's just so many of them.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you've done things in a timely manner for T4s, for taxable benefits, and also just your deductions and things like that are all right. And just here's a little bit of a freebie for everybody. If you have the employees sharing part of the health and dental premiums with the employer, there's a great thing called Box 85 on T4s, which says whatever the employee is paying in towards health and dental, not life or disability, just health and dental, the employer can put into Box 85. And then what happens is it automatically goes into their personal income taxes for the medical expense tax credit. And they don't have to show any receipts or anything else. Saves employers writing up letters saying, yes, the money was shared and stuff. Great little tax perk for the employees and not a big job for the employer once a year.
Worth the price of admission right there, folks.
That's your freebie for the day.
Renewal expectations.
Renewal expectations.
In timelines.
Yeah. So.
Makes you accountable, doesn't it, Dave? Makes you accountable. It makes you actually, hold on a second. I was at Dave's webinar or Dave's seminar yesterday at CGIB that you have every couple of months. And the CGIB session yesterday was, talk to the advisors or a peek behind the curtain, whatever you want to call it. And one of the biggest reasons I asked the question, actually, one of the biggest, I asked the question, what do you see the biggest mistakes that advisors are making out there? And all of them said neglect.
Yeah.
All of them said neglect. So if you've got renewal expectations down there, you're making a commitment in advance that says, I will be back to talk about your renewal at this point in time.
Right. And if you do it well, before you make the sale, you're doing the next renewal.
Yeah.
When you're at this renewal, you're talking about the next renewal. I've been talking now for a month and a half about what's going to happen in the next renewal with OHIP Plus changing for Ontario people listening. That's going to drive up drug rates. And the Ontario Dental Association put up the fee guide, 4.19%.
Which is considerably more than other years.
Which is the highest I've seen in 23 years and double what it normally is. So next year at renewal, if you do everything exactly the same with no inflation, no trends, no nothing, just the dental and drugs is going to be up about 5%. On top of that, we had everything else. Yeah.
Geez, this slide here is worth the price of admission for a couple of reasons.
This is compliments of the Benefits Trust.
Yeah,
man.
there you go. So benefit plan timelines critical. And again, just a couple of words on a page creates great conversations, and it automatically separates you from others. You
and I could go into each one of these for half an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. So important things to include in your benefit checklist, benefit plan timelines. So, we talked, just a minute ago about benefit plan administration examples. It doesn't stop there. We're talking about timelines. Timelines are really critical. And it's interesting because it sets up, timelines set up when you have to do things and how often you have to do them and so on.
I'll give you another one that's not on the list is terminations. I always thought terminations, like everything else, had to be done within 31 days and communicated. But no, most companies are saying, no, we need it right away. So there's no claims after the termination date. And so we're not going to backdate and everything else. We want, instant notification.
So it's interesting because you've got termination examples here under benefit plan administration, but you've also got it on timelines as well because of salary continuation.
And it'll be again on HR because it's a policy issue, and it'll be again in other areas as well.
Taxation.
Yeah, so taxation, people kind of go, a lot of these rules have been around forever. Everyone should know them, but real life, they don't. Yeah, so we want to remind people what's taxable, what's not taxable, and that's changed. AD&D and things like that, accidental death and dismemberment, are now taxable where they were not before.
The premiums are.
The premiums are, sorry, yeah, not the benefits. So we want to make sure that those taxable benefits for life, AD&D, dependent life, and so on are shown properly. We want to make sure that they're updated into the T4s and all that information is shown. And shareholder benefits, the ever popular spicy sports.
Spicy sports, that's certainly
for cost plus or all sorts of different benefits.
Yeah, shareholder benefits, certainly the warning, if you would, on taxation of benefits and shareholder, deemed shareholder benefits, especially dealing with smaller employers. We can spend hours on that. Yeah. And actually, you sent me a picture when you were out at Whistler last in front of Spicy Sports, and I happened to meet the guy and rode up the chairlift with him, a couple of chairlifts with him, and spent a half an hour with him, which was pretty funny. But taxable benefits is something that's becoming more and more popular today than it has in the last 10 years with wellness accounts.
Yep. Brand new. And I mean, you got to keep that separate. If you're doing health spending accounts and wellness spending accounts, make sure that everything's being shown appropriately and stuff, and make sure that
they're separated.
That they're separated. Yeah. That non-taxable is showing as non-taxable and taxable.
But I think that's really important because, for example, if you have $1,000 healthcare spending account, and if you have a $1,000 healthcare spending account and $1,000 wellness account, for example, right? Or you have a choice of $1,000 healthcare spending account or $1,000 wellness account, you can't have the two tainted, because if you put in $900 and $900 in healthcare spending account expenses and then $100 in your golf club membership or your fitness club membership, that taints the entire $1,000.
Yeah. CRA has been weird about that one. They've done a few weird rulings and different things on it, but you're right. I mean, keep it as clean as you can keep it. It matters. And I mean, if you deal with Quebec employees, which is a mess, it's a mess.
It's another country.
There's a whole other world, of problems.
But taxation of benefits is critical because, again, CRA, forget about dealing with CRA, but CRA is impossible to deal with. They're difficult to deal with. There's nothing that's clear.
Why do you want to open the door?
Exactly. That's my point. Yeah. You don't want to open the door. You want it to run clean, clear, concise. So if they do sniff around, they stop sniffing real quick, because when an auditor comes in, they check certain things, and if they see something, they start digging deep. Yeah. You don't want them digging deep in this area because of the advisor negligence.
100%.
Yeah. So that's what this thing does. This list does when we're talking about all these different categories. Is it really eliminates potential negligence that is going to cause problems in the future.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, also makes the best tax sense for the employees.
Absolutely. So on to liability.
So this is my big one. I'm huge on mandatory plans. Get everybody that's a full-time employee that's eligible on the plan. I hate non-mandatory plans where people get to opt out. One, we're not optimizing the plan. We're not getting people all the coverage they deserve. We're adding risk to the employer. And we're giving out premium and ultimately commission along with that as well. So let's get everybody on the plan to keep the risk down and make it run well. And that's the basis. All my plans are mandatory or I don't do them at all. So none of this 75% rule where you can opt out. That's just me. I'm not telling everybody else how to do it, but it does make life easy and it brings in the best situation. And it's the best for rates, because if you have a non-mandatory plan and people opt out, the healthy people opt out, which means the unhealthy use the plan more. And even if it's something like health spending accounts, the utilization is much, much higher. Contract employees.
Employees is huge.
Yeah. And that's two. There's contract and independent contract. So contract
Well,
employees.
what's that? Let's explain that.
Yep. So contract employees are true T4 employees that work for a contracted time, usually 1 year. And so those are real employees, full source deductions, EI, CPP, taxes withheld, all that kind of stuff, but only a 1 year contract. So why is that a problem? Well, the standard insurance contracts say that it's a permanent full-time employee. Well, if you're a 1 year contract, you're not permanent. So right away you have a problem. So now you have to get an exception to say, hey, we want to add a separate class for these contract employees. And generally the rule is no LTD, no long-term disability. The reason being, at the end of your contract, the mental stress of the end of the contract means you go and file an LTD claim.
Yes.
So quite often they'll say, okay, we're going to put a separate class in, we'll agree to it, it'll be this way, it'll be these defined full-time contract stuff. They may not be permanent, but we accept them, but no LTD. Now, independent contractors, by contrast, are self-employed, billing the company, no source deductions. Quite often there isn't a T4A. And the example I use all the time is your office cleaner that comes in once a week and empties the garbages and cleans the windows and wipes down the telephones and everything else. They're never going to be deemed an employee of your company. But they're working in your premise and everything, but they give you a bill at the end of the month. That's an independent contractor. A lot of people try and put those people onto their plans because they're working full-time for you. They're working in your offices or on your job sites or in your factories full-time, and you want to make them feel like an employee, so you're going to give them employee benefits. But what you've done is you've made a commitment. You've tainted it. Yeah. You just said you're an employee. And if you look at the contract, it says, who do we put on the plan? Permanent full-time employees. Well, you just define them as an employee. So you now have a tax problem for this independent contract employee because they're not independent. So all their tax write-offs, their car, their home, their tools, all gone. And now for the employer, you're looking at back taxes and withholdings and everything else. And now we're seeing that extend with audits recently into employer health tax in Ontario.
All sorts of stuff.
Like it just goes on and on and on. Every level of government wants their piece out of it. So contract employees should be kept very well defined. And if they're independent contractors, I say off the plan altogether to avoid the problems.
Now, I got 2 points here, but one of the things that contract employees, I've talked to some employers in meetings, and I use the same advice. If they're contract employees, you don't want them any part of your benefit plan. Any part, you don't want them sniffing around. You don't want anybody sniffing around if they're true contract employees. Where there's invoicing going on and so on. But some of them say, hey, we really want to keep these contract employees or contractors in place, and we want to motivate them to stay with us. We want to pay for their benefit plan. So, Dave, you're a contract employee of the Benefits Trust, and you provide a certain service, but I want to give you $300 a month to pay for your benefit plan.
So you're going to give me. I'm not a tax expert, as well. Say first.
You're going to give me a bill for the $5,000 of services that you provided, and I'm going to give you $5,000 plus $300 for that.
Just give me a bill for $5,300.
Yeah.
Don't show the one line that says I'm paying for medical expenses for you.
Great answer. That's my first one. Hey, before we go on to contract, what about related employers? So, for example, I own a business at the Benefits Trust here, and I want to include all the employees like Mike and all the rest of the crew, but I also own the building. Okay, so I own the building, and the building is under a separate company name, and I have 2 employees that are full-time under that company name that do all the maintenance on the building and cut the grass around the building and shovel the snow and provide maintenance services for the building, which is a separate company, but I own it and it's a related industry. So a related company.
Yep. So this ends up being kind of the provider question as to how they define it. But generally, if it's commonly owned companies, then you can list those companies, and you have to list them. You have to go and say,
yes,
the Benefits Trust and the Benefits Trust holding company both have to be listed on the policy, and the employees of them are eligible, and then that's okay. So you can have sister companies, daughter companies.
List. And what's a related company?
So it depends on definitions, but usually 50% controlling interest in the company or more. It depends. Some companies seem to bend those rules a little bit. But you're trying to avoid the situation where you have the Benefits Trust and the coffee company next door and the nail salon all coming together.
Yeah, and my buddy owns a nail salon, so we'll
Yeah.
just put him in our plan.
Yeah, that you want to avoid.
Yeah.
That's liability all over.
And that's where pooled benefits come into play, because the liability on pooled benefits, because the group insurance is underwritten at the time of claim. So all of a sudden you've got a life insurance claim, or you've got a long-term disability claim, or you've got an out-of-country claim. And all of a sudden it's like, well, hold on a second. Is this guy really an employee of ABC Company Inc., or is he an employee of the coffee shop across the road, which is not related?
I mean, yeah, and it's as simple as saying, show us a paycheck.
Yeah.
And is that name on that paycheck on the contract? And if it's not, then the first question is going to be, why isn't it? Decline.
Because insurance companies, although they'd like to pay claims because they want to stay out of the newspapers, they also don't want to pay claims for non-insured people.
You know what? They want to pay the right claim to the right person at the right time for the right thing.
Yep.
And that's all we ask them to do.
Yep.
That's why we have a contract.
So again, this list, and just before we continue on this list, little points, big conversation.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
Critical. Communication material, how important is that?
Oh, massive. You give somebody an old employee booklet, for example, that says you've got 3 times earnings life insurance, an LTD, and a 100% benefit plan, and last month you just reduced your plan to an 80% plan with 1 times earnings, no LTD. You made a promise in that communication, and you haven't backed it up with your benefit plan. Big risk. That happens all the time. So we always say, get rid of the old booklets, provide new ones, get them to people on the website, because the website's always most up to date with most of the providers and stuff. But yeah, you got to communicate stuff, or you open up the door to risk.
Timelines.
Just like we said earlier, if you're not doing things in a timely manner, late enrollments are a great example, and getting people on the plan when they're supposed to be, it creates a risk. If you just kind of forget about enrolling somebody and you'll get around to it down the road and they die before you've enrolled them, you got a problem. You know, there's a ton of them. Every single thing, salary changes, every one of them creates a liability, if not done in a timely manner.
Overage dependence, my favorite. Let me ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
I was on a cruise last week or 2 weeks ago in the Mediterranean. There was 14 of us, and we had a great time.
That's a big family.
It's a big
Yeah.
family. No, it was all a bunch of friends, 7 couples and 14 of us, and it was great. And it was interesting because we all met for this cruise, and we met in Rome and it ended in Barcelona. And some people were already over there, and they had visited with different places and different people. And some people extended their trip after we got off the ship. But one of the things that was interesting is 2 of the couples had kids come over and meet them in Europe for a graduation trip.
Yeah.
So they were overage dependents, covered under their parents' plan. They graduated from university, and then they're flying over to meet them in Barcelona or whatever.
Question is, do they have out-of-country coverage?
Do they have out-of-country coverage?
Yeah.
And that's the question.
And
And
it's hard to say. Like, I mean, the technical answer is probably not.
The technical answer is probably not.
Yeah, and every contract's a little bit different, and how they run and when they remove.
Because you're no longer a full-time
But
student.
as soon as you're not fitting the eligibility rules, which is full-time student working, doing so many credits and all that kind of stuff, then you're not. And that's a common one. Or quite often people say, I'm off for the summer and I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to start my master's or something. But if they don't, then they weren't covered for the summer either.
Yeah.
Because they weren't a full-time student.
Well, one of the things that was interesting is one of the clients was on the trip.
Yeah.
One of our clients was on the trip, and the broker was there as well.
Oh, good conversation.
And we had the conversation about it, but it was interesting because we had the conversation, the client called me up because I've got a personal relationship with him. The client called me up and asked this question after his daughter graduated, because she was going, in fact, on a trip.
Yeah.
To Europe and then meeting her parents afterwards. And I said, no, the day she finishes university, she needs to get coverage.
I got one more for you.
And we had this conversation, and the broker had no idea.
Yeah. So we had this come up in another
And doesn't
one.
use an administrator's checklist.
Yeah. The student was in the middle of their, they were like 24 years old or whatever, in the middle of the summer, going back into their last year of school. In that summer, they got married.
Oh.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, now that you're married, even though you're a full-time student, some contracts will say you're not covered anymore.
Yeah.
Even though you're a full-time student, because you're no longer deemed a dependent. Kind of old rules because you're now a dependent of your spouse. I'm not sure. But so again,
I'd like to be a dependent.
Read the contracts. Yeah. You know, I am.
I can be a kept man.
Yeah, I'm good with that. That's what I do for a living.
Yeah. So overage dependence important. Pre-X clauses on long-term disability, out-of-country coverages. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Pre-X and stability. Pre-X on LTD and stability clauses on out-of-country are huge liability issues. The problem is most people think they have coverage when they don't, especially travel.
Yeah.
People think that they're covered all the time for everything, and it's just not the case anymore. And that's not a dig against group insurance plans or any of other providers that we use.
So it's a liability.
It's just a liability issue, and it's whether it's individual, group, whether it's sold by travel agent online, they all have these clauses that people aren't aware of.
I'm a vice president of sales for ABC Company Inc., and my job requires me, and the president of the company, the owner of the company, sends me to Chicago for a trade show, and I'm just traveling down there by myself as a representative of company ABC Inc. Right, and in my group insurance plan, I've got out of country coverage. But 3 weeks before that, I went to the doctor, and my Lipitor medication changed from 10 milligrams to 20 milligrams.
Yep, that can be enough. That if you had a health-related event that had something to do with that Lipitor, it could be a declined claim.
Yeah,
so heart attack, stroke.
Yeah, so chances are I'm drinking a whole bunch of booze and eating steaks in Chicago, and there we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's something to be aware of.
Oh,
discussions to have.
Yeah.
Okay. So all of these things really, again, what you're saying is an administrator's checklist. Make sure that the boxes are checked, but it also creates discussion. So when something happens in it creates a discussion. So all of a sudden, hey, we are sending somebody. 6 months from now, we are sending someone. We've had this discussion. Dave, what does that mean again? You're making a call and
totally. I just had one of my clients call me just before Christmas, and he said, we got a family trip we're going away on. And he said, I just went through a bunch of tests, and they want me to come back in the new year to do follow-up tests. And he goes, and I remember you making a big deal out of this, so remind me again. So we went through it. He told me a little bit about the stuff. And I said, you know what? There's a risk here. So you're going to go buy individual coverage.
And pay for it.
Yeah, and pay for it. And he goes, oh, is that expensive? I said, I don't know. It depends. You're going to talk to them, fully disclose. They did. He called me back. He goes, Dave, $23.
Yeah.
It's $23 for 7 days. And he's a younger guy, and he totally disclosed the issue. And they said, no problem. We got a product that's a 7-day stability clause, and you haven't gone through anything in the 3 weeks before you're traveling, you're fine.
Privacy and confidentiality, claims processes, assisting employees with language barriers.
Yeah,
PETA.
that's being a bigger issue. I mean, safeguarding information. You don't want employers to see claims data. So you want to protect the employees. So that privacy issue is huge. You want employees to be submitting their own health questionnaires and their own claims directly. And that really protects the employer from things like wrongful dismissal cases. The language issue is definitely tough. We're seeing more of a global workforce and everything, and helping them to understand their benefits without actually crossing the line into breaching privacy can sometimes be an issue. PETA's been around for a few years for privacy, but we as advisors don't really have the rights to see individual claims for the most part. There are some reasons for taxation purposes and stuff, but that's becoming a bigger issue. Having a corporate privacy policy is important. Odds are your clients have it. You as an advisor should have it as well.
And share those policies amongst each other, et cetera.
Yeah. We and separation divorce considerations are just, boy, they get messy.
They do. Have you had the situation where you've got 3 people covered under one family, 3 adults go so in the separation agreement, you got to stay on benefits and but now we've got a new common law spouse.
So interestingly,
we've had that.
Yeah, and every insurance company has it, and we'll say that, and every TPA has it, and everybody will say we don't do that. So real life, a separation agreement that has an obligation to keep the person on a group plan is non-binding.
Yeah,
it's binding on the person, but not the insurance company. Because you can't have him and her sit down and say, we're binding the insurance company. Rob, you and I can't sit down and say, hey, if we're hungry later, Mike is buying us lunch.
Yeah, we can.
I know we can't, but we can't legally. But
I
know we're bigger than him.
You and I, we could take him.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll shake the money out of his pocket.
Divorce lawyers aren't going to be good with us. So it's a problem. So you want to make sure, but from a privacy standpoint, you don't want his claims going to her or her claims going to him. It can be a big issue.
Human resources.
Yeah, lots of stuff. I mean, really, when you get to people waiving benefits, you want to make sure they understand that when they lose their benefits from their spousal plan, they have to get back on. So that's kind of monitoring and educating and communicating. Waiving premium when somebody's off on LTD, long-term disability. For example, they do a waiver of premium to make sure the life insurance is continued. There's lots of things around policy and stuff, and we're seeing now quite a bit around discrimination. So U.S. companies that are coming to Canada say everybody gets the same benefits. We don't want to see multi-class plans because we're worried about a human rights violation, although we don't see those up here very often. Continuation of benefits when people are off, whether it's mat leave, parental leave, whether it's some of the new, I think there's whatever, 8 or 9 provincial leaves and federal ones as well. There's a lot of those things that you want to kind of make sure that you're at least raising
Tragic
awareness.
event leave.
Tragic event leave, yeah. Like loss of kid leave. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, death
No,
of
that's
a
a tragic
child.
event,
Is that the
yeah.
one? Yeah. There's like a whole bunch of them now. And dealing with disabled employees as well, and just kind of making sure that they're still involved, making sure that all the stuff is done, all the paperwork.
So what is never done? When we're talking about what, and we got to move along here quickly, but what's on the list is never done. There's lots of moving parts, so let's keep that in mind. So where do we use the list?
Yeah, so this is the big thing that I've learned is I made it as a plan administrator training tool, but it's now become a prospecting tool. So when I go out and I say, your broker if it's an existing case, your broker probably has done this, probably educated all of you, because this is the basics. This is where we start, and then we go through the list. And I never get more than 3 or 4 things through the list before they go, we've never seen anything like this before. And I go, this is just table stakes. This is where we start. We go, like every one of these things can be an hour conversation. This is where we start in adding value to you, protecting you. So we use it in the initial meeting to train them. We do it at every renewal meeting. We don't have to always go through it in full detail.
But it's just a reminder.
But they've got it, and they're signing off that they've got it.
And you're showing them changes.
Yeah, and highlighting stuff all the way through. OHIP Plus, was a change in Ontario. So it got added and removed and changed around. We do renewal meetings. We do it off renewal meetings. Quite often, you kind of step in mid-year. Maybe you rush through it at the year. Maybe they're doing a change. They just did a purchase of a new company. You got a new plan administrator starting, and you want to kind of bring them up to speed. And it's a great way as an advisor, if you're worried about the new CFO, the new plan administrator coming in
With their guy
or their girl or their person, their advisor, here's a way to differentiate right from the start. And just go, hey, we'll go through all the stuff. We'll talk at renewal time, but here's what we do as an advisor to add value to your relationship. And
great prospecting tool, and something of a value seminar or webinar seminar with prospects or trade publication.
And nobody does that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's not sharing your list in the trade publication. It's talking about your list in the trade publication.
Absolutely. I'm big for sharing information, but that's better.
So how do you use your list? Well, this is a branding thing, in my opinion. This is really a branding question because how you use a list, this is not a universal list. This is your list. Dave, this is your list. And Mike, this is your list that you're going to create, which is going to be different than Dave's. And I'm going to create a different list. And ABC agent out there, and ABC advisor out there, and XYZ advisor out there, create your own list. Create your own brand, create your own list, and make it your list. Put your name on it and name your list, right? And it's not necessarily, Dave's administration checklist. It's the administration solution.
Yeah.
Come up with a catchy name for it. Make it part of your solution. Include this in your packaging. Put your logo on it, etc. I love to say in ad campaigns, checklist offer, right? Here's the purpose of this list, and this is what we do. Let's meet for 15 minutes. Make an offer to somebody. Let's meet for 15 minutes, and I will share my list with you.
Yeah.
Right. Put the list. Put the offer on your website, because people look for things like this, and it's amazing what you find. Right. Below the waterline on this iceberg, it's R&D and innovation. Keep updating your list, and that's something
it's
you're
never stagnant. Yeah, every year you're updating some taxation changes, legislation changes, whatever.
Yeah, and customer support. Like you're always using your list. You're saying, hey, like you just said a moment ago, we're not going through this in detail, but here are some changes.
Yeah.
Right. Sales reps, great referral piece.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want somebody, if somebody says, "Oh, I got a friend," say, "Here, share this. You've got it in your renewal. Share this with them and show them what I do."
Yeah.
And you're the best referral.
Really
the
separates them from the rest. So, really, this list is about respect for all the parties involved. It's about ethics. It's about integrity. It's about honesty. It's keeping everybody on the same page. Would you agree?
It's setting you apart from everybody else.
Yeah.
For all those reasons.
For all of those great reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just not. It's not about just separating yourself from everybody else because you want to look different. You can wear a bow tie.
No, it's for all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with bow ties.
No. But you know what I'm saying? Like some people, hey, they wear a bow tie, or someone always wears a 3-piece suit, or somebody always.
Hey, give them the choice of this, or hey, I'm the cheapest. Which would you pick?
Oh, definitely the cheapest, because that's what I like. I like to spend a lot of time.
That's why you're driving a
saving money.
72 Corolla.
Yeah, that's right. And I want the cheapest, Dave. Thank you very much. No, I want to deal with someone with respect, integrity, ethics, and honesty, without a doubt. So why? Why do we use this list? Because it's important, or because It's valued advisor positioning. It's liability client.
It's everything. It's everything. Like, I mean, all this stuff is important. You want to set yourself apart from everybody else. You want to protect. You want to be the good arms people to steal an old line.
Yeah, it's good arms people. Great way to put it. TripAdvisor ratings for. It's interesting. The most valuable tool on TripAdvisor, and all of us have probably used TripAdvisor, right? Are the ratings from users.
Yeah.
The ratings from users. So if you use this list with your clients, they're going to tell other people about it, and they're going to give you 5 stars on this.
Yeah. And I mean, just HR and everything else, those people move to other companies. They take it.
The CFO moves.
And the CFO moves. They walk in and show that list and go, this is why I deal with this person. It's a hands down, okay. You got a relationship, you got a guy, you got a list, you're ahead.
It's the most valued thing. Clients, in my opinion, when you use value-added services like this, because it's value-added not just for sexiness, it's value-added because of those ethics, and it just makes nothing but sense. But your clients are going to become your best salespeople.
100%. Last cold call I made was over 10 years ago.
Yeah, there you go. Last cold call was over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, think about that, eh?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So we talked about very quickly in 55 minutes, we talked about who, what, where, how, and why, and who to use this list. But the takeaway is really create your own list.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as here's a list. Just like there's no such thing as a will.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a purchase and sale agreement.
I've had advisors across the country, and not a lot of them, but that have shared their list back with me. And I think some of their lists are amazing for the things. They don't apply to my clients, but they're amazing. We talked about collective bargaining agreements, for example, stuff like that. Yeah.
Create your own list, own your list, brand your list, update your list, use your list, and share
every time. Use it, use it, use it.
Share your list share your list in industry, not in your prospect related industry, something of value, seminars, articles, etc. Share your list, share what you're doing. Spend a little bit of time. It's time for action. G19 was a warning. It's time for action. Separate yourself.
Add value. Show that you're doing something to earn the money.
You got it. Show that you're doing something to earn the money. As I like to say, grow or die. You choose.
Yeah.
I choose to grow.
You do, we do.
Yeah, that's right. CGIB, this is an organization that Dave started how many years ago now?
About 15.
15 years ago. Seminars are held 4 or 5 times a year.
Yep.
You've got a seminar coming up in August talking about this list.
Yep. How to build your own Plan Administrator checklist, August the 14th.
And it's a little bit more deeper dive.
Oh, much, much deeper. So
half day, full day?
It's half day, just over a half day. Actually, it's breakfast and lunch are included because you're going to be there so long. It's extremely interactive. So a lot of people are sharing stories, case examples, and things like that, so that when you sit down with your client, you can explain not just here's the idea on the list, but here's examples of where it works, good or bad or different.
There was a question that came up. Can I get a good sample list, please? And the answer is no. You got to build your list. It's time for action. It's your action. We're just not going to hand out a list. You got to build one and create one yourself, right? And you go to this seminar. The person that asked this question, I know they're local. They can go to the seminar, CGIB, August 14th.
It's in Vaughan. It's a Wednesday. Information's on cgib.ca. And
if you're not a member of CGIB, become a member. It's an organization that Dave started 15 years ago. He's done this to help others. You're a broker. You're an advisor.
Yeah.
You've done this to help others, and you do a great job at it. Join this organization if you're not a member already. Go to the seminars. They're excellent. Yesterday, it was unfortunate that there was only about 75 people at the seminar. I think it's the best seminar you put on in the last couple of years. Usually you get about 150. I don't know if it was the time of day or year or whatever.
It was June. Yeah, I'm not sure.
But it was a great session.
Yeah, I think it's great. And the whole idea is to make you better. I learned a lot from Rob, from you, from Mike, from people all across the industry, and advisors have helped me be a better broker. And all we're doing is trying to share that information back.
And it doesn't matter, I use your sailing analogy, Dave, because you're a big sailor. It doesn't matter the size of boat you're sailing.
No.
It doesn't matter the size of boat you're sailing. You still need a life jacket, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying a list is a life jacket, but there are certain things that you got to do that's ethically correct and so on, right? And this is one of them to create value. If you're running a marina and you're renting out this boat, you want to make sure that individual has a life jacket and an extra one, right? Yeah. It's the rules, right? Yeah. This should be a rule.
I'm a little advisor working out of my basement with no staff. This is just as important if you're a Mercer or an Aon as it is somebody like me.
Or if you're running this boat. Now, this is a boat of a.
That's a butt ugly boat.
It's a butt ugly boat. This is the largest privately owned sailing vessel.
Yeah.
It's owned by this Russian dude, I believe.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And it was.
Isn't he like 35 or something?
40 years.
Yeah.
40 years old. It was in Monte Carlo a couple of weeks ago during the F1 race. Cost $800 million to build. It's got a staff of, I think, 60 on it. So it doesn't matter. Guess what they have on board there? Life jackets.
You know what's funny? Do you know how many people that takes? It has a staff of 60. It's got cabins for 12.
There you go.
It's amazing.
Dave, you got to be comfortable.
It's full service. You got to be comfortable.
Yeah. So we want to thank you very much for participating today. We've spent an hour together. You're going to get a CE certificate for participating. You're going to be signed up for our Trusted Advisor newsletter. You are going to be getting a survey. Please fill it out and give us your feedback. And tell us what we did right, tell us what we did wrong, give us future subjects that we want to cover. As well as that, you're going to be getting a link to this presentation. And a big shout out to my friend Dave. Dave, you gave us your time today like you do so generously to so many people, so we appreciate that very much. We've got a parting gift for you. Here's a framed picture of the Queen of England, so thank you very much for coming.
I'll hang that over on my desk.
There you go.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we're going to be repeating this if you want to come back in a couple of weeks. I know you're going to come back, Dave. You've already committed. But for those of you that are listening, if you know anybody that wants to participate, please have them sign up. Check out thebenefitstrust.com.
If you have other people in your office that you think can hear the message, bring them along.
Bring them along. And as well as that, don't forget August 14th. Sign up for in-depth deep dive into this session. Thanks for your time, Dave. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye for now.